Hello and welcome to another episode of Seddon and Laceys Comic Stash. And it's that time of the month where we look into our balls of crystal to see what is coming in the future.
We need to get props. We need a crystal ball.
I'll let you sort the props.
Okay. I'll just get like a lampshade or something. I actually looked up to see if I had one on the light there that I could nick, but no, it's just a bulb.
Ah!
Next time. Next time.
But before we gaze into the future to see what joys are coming our way, we shall regale in the past and what we've been doing in our reading corners.
You go first.
Okay, so I will start. And my
Yeah.
reading corner
Mm-hmm.
is something special.
Mm-hmm.
It was bequeathed of me for my birthday by a certain Mr. Seddon.
This guy.
And
Who's
it
got
is.
two thumbs and bought you a birthday present? This guy.
and before I delve into what I think of it, I want to know what made you think of getting it for me. Because I know this isn't one that you've read before. If you have, you've never mentioned it. Is
I
Dark
haven't.
Ride.
Yeah, I haven't read it. I was looking. I thought, oh, what to get you for your birthday? And I must admit, at first I was kind of looking around, let's say, some more familiar creatures. I was kind of going, oh, is there anything like really cool jokery that I can find that isn't something that's kind of already in the list or something that you've got? And I was finding like not a lot of inspiration. I was even going down the line of trying to find you some cool like Joker figures or something, but I would say the range that was available right now, no, there wasn't really anything good. So then I just went, okay, let's get you something. And I went, well, let's get something that I liked that I think you'll like or that I thought was really good. But then I went, and for the other thing, let's get you something that I haven't read. And so I was just kind of having a flip around and going, and I probably spent more time than I should have. But you know, sometimes when you're just looking and you're just going, you're getting quite
Yes.
interested yourself. And yeah, I was just darting around, and there was a couple of bits, and I won't say what the others are, just in case there's other occasions that happen in the year. But there were a couple of bits that I just like had either like the cover or kind of initial quick read of the concept grabbed me a little bit, and yeah, this kind of as a bundle, just it looked and sounded like it'd be up your alley. So I thought, let's give it a punt.
And it was right up my alley. So Dark Ride is basically a story around a theme park of evil.
And like for anyone who watches this show regularly, or anyone who's watched it at least once, hence why I picked this for Chris.
So basically, just a gist of what it is. Our main park owner, Arthur Dante, kills his wife after a row, buries her in the Nevada desert, and hears evil voices just after he buries her to create a theme park and do something called Devil Land. Um, we then go into the future and we see Owen, a newbie on his first day working at the park, and he's a super fan of horror and super fan of the park. We see Arthur's kids, Samaran and Halloween, and they basically both want the park when Dad dies because Dad's meant to be around 100-ish at this point.
He's
They
had a
need
good innings. He's
He's
had
had
a
a
good
good
innings.
innings.
Yeah.
The park is struggling to get punters through the door, so they feel they need to have a new ride. And Owen sort of has these ideas and things for what could be a good ride and good way to bring people in. And on his end of his first shift, he's wandering through the park at night and gets sucked into a ride to death. We then, so that's basically the first issue. The second issue and onwards, Owen's sister comes in to find out what happened to her brother. Um, Gets a job at the park, and basically finds out what's going on, and then mystery and murder continues. And
It
I
had
love.
um, it had vibes for me when I was reading about it and I can't remember what the movie is called, but that Nicolas Cage one that you reckon's really good, that's actually Blob, that's a total skank of Five Nights at Freddy's.
Willy's
It
Wonderland.
had, yeah, it had feel. I was getting those kind of vibes from it.
Yes. We have murderous mascots, murderous rides, evil Satan. It's just
Satan.
it's as I said, it stinks of me. I
Yeah.
smashed through it in about an hour, and I may have pre-ordered Volume 2 when it comes out later in the year.
I must admit, when I was getting it, I didn't look to see. I know it's like volume one, but I didn't look to see what the amount of issues equivalent was. I didn't know if it was like 5, 6 issues or something like that. But yeah, it read like here is first story arc. So I thought, oh, let's give it a go.
Yeah, so it is 4 issues in the collection.
Okay,
But yeah, no, I've pre-ordered Volume 2 because yeah, it stinks of me, and it I'm all for this. Um,
you should let me
it's
buy
one of
your
those.
comics more often. Although I
Yes.
think I just offered to spend all my money on you, which I don't mind. I don't mind spending a few bob on you, but I kind of like spending some of it on myself.
But yeah, no, as I said, for a shot in the dark and a whim of what you thought I'd like, yeah, I fucking love this.
Well, I've not read a lot. The writer Joshua Williamson. I've not read much of his, but I've certainly heard good things about it. I know he's writing a lot at DC at the moment, and it's kind of in that area that I'm not up to yet. Says the
Mm.
man who's predominantly reading the New 52, so I'm about a decade away from it. But that helped as well because I thought, okay, I might not have read a lot of him, but enough people are saying he's a really good writer, so that was a big selling point for me as well.
Yeah. The art is the right level of comic of like cartoon horror. So like a bit sort of Scooby Dooey.
Oh, I love a bit
So
of Scooby
like
Doo.
it's a one of the mascots is a little devil, the devil as he's known, but he stinks of like a mixture of like a plushie, a pop, and like a Scooby Doo villain that you'll take his head off and buy it's Mr. Jenkins
Yes, yes.
sort of vibes. And yeah, yes, as I said,
You
I've
are very
ordered the next
much
one.
speaking
Loved it.
to my language here. It does sound really good. And yeah, as I say, as much as I was looking for something that I thought you'd like, I was relatively intrigued. But I thought, oh, brilliant! I'll get that for you, and then you can tell me and if it's good. I might hunt it down, and if it's poop, then tough. Like that's what you got. Deal with it.
I will say the other one that you got me is next on my reading. It's just I didn't want to hit six
Okay,
issues of something straight
there's no
in.
rush. You've got them.
So,
You got them to read at your leisure.
but I am off next week, so I'll probably
What?
hit that next. I know.
Outrageous.
More time off work comes around so
More
nicely.
time in your oven-like flat.
But I can have a fan on me all
Yeah.
day
Well,
and
I,
read
I, I
comics.
must I must admit, there's a part of me at the moment because it is for anyone not in the UK bloody hot at the moment. Now,
Yes.
in comparison to lots of other countries, probably not that hot. But we in England like to think bloody hot starts at a lot lower temperature than everywhere else. But I was actually thinking about this today of going. My workplace is lovely and air conditioned, but that's where the lovely starts and stops. And I was going, I think I'd rather sit on the like actually on the sun than go to work. But yeah, we
Yeah,
take what we can get.
it is one of those. I think at the minute it's probably colder outside my flat than it is in my flat.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, in the best possible way. With the noisy neighbours that I have, it's lucky enough that you don't hear every one of their conversations on this show. But if I open that window right now to let some air in, Jesus Christ, it would be a very different show, and it probably wouldn't be allowed on YouTube.
So, what have you been up to in your corner?
So I am also in the world of Image Comics because Dark Ride was an Image Comics story, wasn't it?
Yes.
Mine is 20th Century Men, and this is actually popping back a little bit. I did actually read this a little while ago. I just haven't got around to talking about it on the show. And it was by a new writer for me, a chap called Dennis Camp, and a new artist for me as well. I never heard of him before, and this is that bit where I had it up on here and I'm scrabbling because I've moved off from the bloody page. So I haven't got his surname, but sorry, his first name, but his surname's Morian. But I will get it before I get to the end of this. But this is a 6-issue limited series, and it is a compact like story told in its entirety, and very very different to obviously what we've just done with Dark Ride. This leans into a lot of superhero tropes, but ostensibly it's about an alternate history of conflicts between Russia and America, and Afghanistan being the major base for a large part of this story. And we have a Russian super soldier, and that's probably a bit of a lie. It's a Russian Iron Man, effectively, but he's in a suit of armor, and it's fantastically depicted because it is very much, rather than kind of Iron Man, he is permanently kind of hunched in it. It looks like a gorilla, but a gorilla if it was made in the 1990s out of metal, that sort of thing. So visually, sort of quite stunning, and he is basically a hero of Russia. That doesn't run Russia, but he is the troop that everyone knows, and we get into a lot of what the politics would be like in Afghanistan if Russia were controlling it in the 90s, but America still had a very, very active interest in it. And not just the governmental structure and the politics of that, but also what this means for people who are actually living in Afghanistan. So a large part of the story focuses on, I would say, tender hooks, kind of little bit of a love story, but effectively not a love story, but about an Afghan lady who starts a community of her own, but our Russian soldier is somewhat obsessed with her. And you get to see a very interesting look at politics from another time, stroke religion from another time. And I'm skirting around it because I kind of don't want to sort of spoil where parts of this story go. But I found it really interesting and really eye-opening. I learned a lot reading this because as much as I say it's an alternate history, some of it leans into actual history, but some of the concepts and the themes that they play within the political and the societal and the religious world are taken from ancient history or ancient religions. And so then it sort of kind of piqued my interest to look it up afterwards. And at the same time, as I say, like, it is quite a kind of Russian-led story. You do get the American side of it as well, and that's where you do kind of get the American super soldier, but who is now the president of the United States of America. So
of course,
he stopped having to be a superhero and become a president, but his popularity is waning, and that's one of the reasons why the interest into getting back into a conflict with Russia and Afghanistan comes up, because it's not unprecedented for leaders who are losing popularity to want to get a war behind them for people to latch onto. And I would say, like, his Bucky, but his Bucky that is kind of a Bucky or Wolverine, but another American super soldier who lost their marbles during conflict and now is actually just a kill crazy, rampaging murder machine, and then chucking that into this conflict. And there are other parts in there, like it looks at some characters that don't necessarily play a big part other than in one issue, but it looks at the history of how they got there, so why they got powers and all that sort of thing. But as a piece, I think it's really, really fantastic to read. And I think what makes it fantastic is I think the story is really solid. I think they do a really good job with it. I think the characters are really interesting and really compelling. But I think that latching it onto real world events, but showing you what could have been, or an alternate version of it, but without it seeming twee. It isn't like some of, sometimes you see that done badly where it's almost, it, the kind of the opposite world. Star
Yeah,
Trek, when you go to opposite world,
I've got a
they're evil
beard.
because they've got a beard. Yeah, like it doesn't feel like that. It feels like a massive amount of thought has been put into how and why the world would turn out like this, and how and why people would actually be reacting this way. And the art in it is absolutely amazing. And I say amazing. I don't think it's like the sort of thing that you have on a poster on the wall,
Yeah,
but the variation that he uses between page to page, panel to panel throughout it is just astonishing. And sometimes, like, you go from a panel which is, your robot ape kind
yeah.
of there on a hill in Afghanistan, sun blazing behind, to like the next panel. It would just be like stark white, and it will almost be pencil only outline of the next character you see. And I think it just varies so much in line with what they're trying to tell in the story. But yeah, this for me was kind of a whim buy. I heard nothing about it, and a whim read, and amazing. Like this will stay with me for a very long time, and I'll come back for anything these dudes ever do again.
Sometimes those randos can be the best. So yes, that sounds like it was a good one.
Yeah, I think you'd like it as well. Like it's one of those ones where I go, oh, you know what? I think you'd get something out of this. I think
mm,
you'd be interested in how they do and how they portray the world. We've often talked probably a bit more on the music one, on our music reactions about how our political mindset is, and maybe
yes.
kind of like our moral system and things like that. And don't get me wrong, this goes like left, right, and centre. You see the worst of politics, and you see the worst of what people can be, and you see some of the best of it, and everything in between. But I think throughout it, it's portrayed interestingly enough that you would latch on to probably the characters that share the same ideals as you. And if we're honest, probably by the end of it, the characters who have the same interests as you are probably the effective heroes. But I'm not saying that everything works out brilliantly, because it does have that real world element of going,
Mm,
the world can be a bit shit sometimes as well.
yeah, that does sound quite interesting. You'll have to ping me a link to it, and I'll see
Yeah.
what I can do on that one. So, shall we gaze into the future?
Let's do it. Well,
Um,
we're going to Marvel
we will
first.
start with Marvel. So I have five for Marvel this year, or this
I
month
didn't
even.
count. I am sorry.
But I'm going to imagine a few of these will end up being on your list as well, so we'll jump in at the same time on them. So starting with Uncanny Avengers.
Oh, we
So,
varied straight away.
oh, so obviously this is jumping on the back of the giant Last of X.
Yeah, Fall of X, isn't it?
That's
Yeah,
Fall
yeah,
of X that
yeah.
is running through pretty much most Marvel things this month. Um, so we have a new Avengers team that have been forced together due to attacks on Cocoon and the US. And our new Avengers squad is Captain America, Rogue, Deadpool, Quicksilver, Psylocke, and Monette, or Monet, however you want to pronounce it.
Monet,
Um,
yeah, Monet.
yeah, so this is only a 5 issue run.
Yeah,
So it's not going to obviously be the new Avengers going forward. But I would imagine this is all going to link into everything else that's going on in all the other Fall of
yeah,
X stuff. But as something that is probably standalone a little bit of that, and not needing to know everything that's going on, this one did pique my interest a little bit on there.
it's got a bit of history. There's been Uncanny Avengers before, often referred to as a Unity Squad, and it was a series that they ran uh, a good few years back now. But it was a mixture of mutants and Avengers, and the idea was like during a time when well, during forever, when mutants aren't necessarily the most popular people in the world, like kind of linking mutants up with the Avengers. And there's some crossover cast in it. So Captain America was on the team back then. Rogue was on the team. Deadpool. I can't remember whether Quicksilver was, but yeah, there's some history. But I think probably for this just knowing that that existed, and I'm sure probably early doors in it there might be, uh, oh, we're doing this again because.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think you have to have read what came before for this to make any sense.
Yes.
I
N-
I also had a couple of Fall of X titles that I picked out, but not Uncanny Avengers. I do what I'm reading the X stuff, so I probably will read this when I ever get caught up to this point. But I don't know. I don't know what it was. I think it was actually the lineup that I was not so interested in here.
mm.
I wanted it to be funkier and more interesting. And I think one of the other things it did me in is there's a couple of variant covers that had much cooler lineups, and I'm just like, why couldn't it have been them? But yeah, the Fall of X ones that jumped out for me was, and I can't wait for this. We're getting a 5 issues of Alpha Flight. I bloody love Alpha Flight. Canada's premier super team, and um, they first appeared in Chris Claremont's X Men run, and
Mm.
then got a series of their own written and drawn by John Byrne. And I have such a soft spot for them as a group of characters, and I'm not saying they've always been done well, and they really haven't. There's some real bleak parts in history runs on them, and the way they were treated, but they're just a team that I've just got such affection for. And again, I think it was at a formative time for me where, God, I loved everyone, but
Yeah.
my love for Alpha Flight has stayed, and I'm just so happy to see an Alpha Flight series again. And every fibre of my being is hoping that it sells well, is received well, so that this could turn into an ongoing. Because this again is a one of five, very
Well,
much in the Uncanny Avengers mold.
yeah, I think with a lot of the stuff that is coming out for the Fall of X stuff, a lot of it is limited 5 issue runs, but I think that's
Yeah, which
probably
makes
because
sense,
it's
doesn't
going to
it? Yeah,
be running through this period of the Fall of X. But you
yeah,
say if you get decent sales out of it, it could be something that, oh, Alpha the Alpha Squad sold well.
yeah. Let's make that an ongoing. Yeah.
Give it 6 months, get us out of the Fall of X cycle, and then be like, and then start again, and we can run from there, sort of thing.
Well,
Was there anything
the
else
other
in the Fall of
one,
X?
yeah, Children of the Vault, and it is a story element that I've only briefly touched on in X Men at the moment. So there is a vault, and this vault is almost timeless, and people live in there for thousands of years, and they're kind of mutants. And again, I'm going with the I've got a long way to go in this part of the story to
Yeah,
get us to this, so I've only seen the opening bits. But my understanding is effectively they've gone beyond mutant at this point because they've evolved even further, etc., etc., etc. However, the thing that was the selling point for me on this, more than anything else, and more than the concept, and more than the link into the Fall of X, is the writer, and the writer is Dennis Camp, who wrote 20th Century Men. And as I said, I'm buying and reading anything that this guy does from now on, and this is his first. Oh, I believe it's his first step into the Marvel world. So, yep, sign me up. I'm in for this.
fair enough. Anything else in X world before we go into the rest of the Marvelness?
That's me and X as far as I can tell. And if there is any more X, my bad. But I don't think I think that is it for me and X.
So next one on for me was the Immortal 4 #1.
We are
Um,
crossing over here. Yep.
wasn't much in the solicit to say about what it was going to be or where they're going with it. Just, that 4 is a god, has many names, and is being indoctrinated into the immortal world.
Do you know what though? The way that it was phrased, and I think you're right. Like it doesn't give too much like away, except for me, I felt like it was going to be a little bit more of a lean into the godliness.
Mm.
So I think often you get that kind of jump in and out of how godly is he, how Norse mythology is he, and this felt to me like that's where they're going with this.
Like
I
I said,
may just be
with
reading too much into the solicits, but
with the names they were bringing out are obviously a lot of the traditional
yeah,
Norse shorthands or sub names for four. So yeah,
yeah, and I think I said to you before, like the Walt Simonson run of Thor, which is just absolutely dripping with Norse mythology, is my favorite Thor of all time. So someone, and there are other writers who've done bits around that.
Mm.
Jason Aaron certainly touched on it, but yeah, this feels like we are going to get like a lots of yees and these and smites and things like that. And do you know what? I'm down for it if that's what we're getting. But yeah, certainly
Yes.
piqued my interest. Hoping that that's what we're getting, shall I say?
Yes. Next, and this one's a weird one because it seems that all five parts of this are coming out in the same month. Death of the Venomverse.
Yeah, I
Um,
saw this on there. Yeah, and you're right. It is 5 issues. I mean, I don't know whether August is a 5 week month and whether they're going to be like one a week
weeklies.
for five
Yeah.
weeks. Yeah,
So Carnage building up his powers, trying to take out and kill all the other symbiotes to be the one true Uber symbiote. I'm like, obviously, after you sort of saying about the Carnage run last week, I'm like, is this actually them going to finally
I think
have
I think there's
a
going to be links.
reset?
Looking at some of the covers, I think there are going to be links to everything that was in Absolute Carnage and up to like the end of the run that I'm reading, where you get like the confrontation with Null, because I saw him on one of the covers as well. So yeah, yeah, there's linkage there for sure.
But yeah, it's one of those. As you said last week, with the symbiote expansion of
Yeah,
drop a bit on anyone and oh, we've got a new character. If they are having a bit of a cull and going to stick to it for a bit, I think it could help the whole of that thing. And if you just literally go down to having just the two, have Venom and Carnage, and that's your lot,
yeah,
or even kill off one of those two for a bit and have just the one, that would be probably good for the character because it's that whole thing of in a wrestling term of we can't like you forever, and sometimes you need to we can't miss you if you don't go away.
yeah. I mean, it didn't make my list, but I'll be honest. I think that is absolute Carnage bias. So I think if I hadn't have just come off of that, but when I saw 5 issues of something that sounded very similar to what I just read 31 issues plus of, I was like,
Yeah.
no, not for me. But I think by the time it comes out, I will have carried on and hopefully finished the Donny Cates run, and I think I might actually be up for this by the time it drops. But at this point, it's a bit like, no, not interested. I want to do the run I'm on, and then I'm moving on with my life.
uh, Next is Marvel Age 1000.
See, I saw that. I did wonder if you picked that out, because I mean, there's a it's certainly got a blockbuster amount of writers and artists linked to it,
Mm.
hasn't it?
So to me, this stinks of what happened with Batman or Detective Comics 1000 and the Batman. I think it's the 7th or the 80th anniversary Batman one that came out a couple of years ago, where we're going to get lots of 4 or 5 page
Yeah, yeah,
mini stories as a sort of these all these wonderful writers having a little play with these characters. So one of
yeah. Little
those of
morsels, isn't it? And probably
yeah,
teasers for stuff that's to come for, let's say, the next year or two, and maybe in there a couple of concepts that aren't on the docket for release, but this might be the all.
the thing that
If
goes,
people
oh yeah,
vibe with it, then yeah. They do these sort of things like quite regularly. Not like a Marvel Age 1000, but they quite often, a couple of times a year, you get a bit of a story that hints at stuff to come, like 5 pages, 6 pages, and things like that. I don't know, like I never get excited about them, like,
mm,
and I always think it's because it's like, I don't know. It feels to me like if I watched a movie length, but it was just trailers.
yeah,
But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, there are some great artists and writers attached to this, and maybe when we come closer to it, when I kind of get an idea of probably what creators are doing which
Who?
characters, yeah,
Yeah.
I might get a little bit more invested in it. Yeah, a couple more for me for Marvel, and this one's quite bittersweet. It's Captain America finale #1, and I've said it a few times, and I think I've actually picked out for solicitations how much I've been enjoying the Colin Kelly and Jackson Lansing written part of this, and I think even for last month, I think I highlighted. I want to say it's like issue 750, and I
Yeah.
was like, wow, what are these guys going to do next? And this is what they're doing next. So this is their final issue of Captain America, and I believe the idea is they're going to wrap up what they've done so far in their part of the story, and because Captain America is getting relaunched, and Captain America, when we get to the September solicits, I believe will be showing up on there. Um, but I've only read the first trade. I said on here I love the first trade. I was
Mm.
so interested to see where they go with it. I am a bit gutted that it's ending, but also I guess I'm going to get, hopefully, fingers crossed, close to what they wanted to do, although probably a shorter version of it. So it's definitely on my radar. But yeah, as I say, a bit bittersweet. And speaking of finales and ends, the solicit for Daredevil #14 is the end. It says, but of what? A life, a love, a marriage, Matt Murdock's time as Daredevil, or the latest and greatest run in one of Marvel's most celebrated sagas? All of the above? Question mark. And I do actually think, I'm sure I've read along the way that Chip Zdarsky, who's writing at the moment, is leaving Daredevil. So I think this might be
Mm.
the end of it. So yeah, a couple of end points. And when I say it might be the end, potentially we might get something else after this in the interim,
Yeah.
and this might not be the final issue. But yeah, a bit of sadness. But also, sometimes it is nice to get to the end of a run, isn't it?
Yeah.
If they stick the landing, it's not always a negative thing because, like
It,
you said earlier, if they don't go away, you'll never miss them.
yeah, it's that thing with obviously because I've read the first few of this Daredevil run and fucking love it.
Yeah, yeah,
And if they have keep that quality up all the way through and they have their story that they want to tell, and as you say, they stick to Landon, I will be happy
yeah,
and it's
yeah.
perfect. It's the same with the Punisher run that's been going on as well at the minute.
Yes, yeah,
You know, I'm absolutely loving it, but I wouldn't want it to carry
yeah,
on to a point where it's just getting a bit
yeah. Tell your
washed
story
out
and
just
get it
because
done.
you've
Yeah,
got to
yeah,
get we're giving you another 6 issues, but I haven't got another 6 issues worth of story.
yeah.
Do something.
How many TV shows have you seen where it runs for 15 seasons? And you go, you had two really good seasons. I wish you just left it there. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the
Um.
thing with those sort of runs. As you say, as long as they stick the landing in it
Yeah.
as a complete body of work is good, then yes.
Well, I don't know what the sales are like on Captain America. So Daredevil has there's the run that we're reading at the moment. Then there is another series. There's like a crossover, then another series, then this Daredevil. So this is issue 14. So it's kind of a second volume of Matt Murdock on Daredevil, and there are storyline reasons. But this is done well. But I go back to the cat one. I don't know whether that's going away because of poor sales. I think possibly either way, it's going away because of the new creative team. They've got quite a big name writer coming on to take it over, but I won't go into that. We'll do that in next month's solicits, and that one's a bit more of a sad one because I kind of go, oh, they were telling a really good story. Has it been stopped because someone else wanted to play with that toy? Whereas yes, this
Yeah.
Daredevil run, it feels like he has got to tell his stories, and he's going to go away into the sunset satisfied, and hopefully for us, we'll be fully satisfied at the end of it as well.
Yes.
And there's also Star Wars. There's a crossover starting in the Star Wars comics. I'm way behind on Star Wars comics, but I'm still very excited for this, and it's called Dark Droids, and it is going to be so. There's Dark Droids #1, and I think there will be a some standalone kind of Dark Droids issues, and then
Mm.
within the main Star Wars series, and I presume probably Invader, that the story will continue. So kind of that format that we often see in DC or Marvel superhero stuff, but in the Star Wars universe. I love me some of this Marvel Star Wars run. So the idea of getting more issues and something called Dark Droids. I quite like a droid, and I quite like an evil one at that.
So my last of the Marvels is Marvel Unleashed. Craven unleashes the beasts. So Craven abducts Lockjaw at the same time as a
Oh, I
local
love a bit of Lockjaw.
scientist mixes up aim and goes missing. So we get Frog the Frog of Thunder, Redwin the Falcon, Chewie the Cat Flurkin, Lucky the Pizza Dog, Bats the Ghost Dog, and their scrappy new ally, D Dog. I thought this stinks of you, you know.
Do you know what? I totally missed it. Like I'm looking at it now because you sort of said when you said about it, and I thought, what is this? And I've just looked. Yes, I don't know how I missed out on this. But I skipped straight past it, and I will say at this stage, by accident, because this sounds, as you say, right up my alley and stinking of me.
Yeah,
You
it
have
said
me at
it.
lockjaw. Add in Lucky the Pizza Dog, and
It
it's
said
probably perfection for me.
it is only a 4-issue run to start with, but again, with something like this, I'm going to imagine that if it sells well, and I'm gonna guess it's going to be aimed more at the younger market, probably with the fact that it's being
Yeah,
the animal team up.
yeah.
This is the sort of thing that will maybe, I don't know, he might be in that sort of bit now 'cause he's 12. He's too old for this sort of thing. But the young, definitely one for the younger readers, I think,
It
and
is a bit weird,
get
isn't
them
it? Like
in.
as you say, for your boy, like he's probably at that age where he might reject this, whereas stick
A
sort
year
of.
ago,
But yeah, so he's a year out of it. But fast forward 30 odd years, and I'm like, yes, I want to kind of experience this sort of story again. What might be of interest to you as well? I don't know if you noticed, but the writer Cole Starks, he's writing that, and I want to correct me if I'm wrong here. Where monsters lie. That
yes,
serial killer one that you read recently, yeah, same writer as that.
I liked Where Monsters Lie. I still haven't been able to get, due to issues with comics coming into the country. Abstract haven't been able to get me issue 2, 3, and 4 of
Boo.
Where Monsters Lie. Not for lack of trying, because last time I went in there, he was literally on the phone to him trying to find out what was going on.
Go give me my
But
bloody comics.
yeah, but this is why I shop local, because at
Yeah,
least I know that my money's going to good people when I do it.
yeah.
So shall we go into
I've got
DC?
one more
Oh, he's got one
Marvel.
more. He's got one
I've
more
got one
Marvel.
more. And this seems to be a trend in the last couple of solicits, and you might have even skipped past it because it was easily not noticeable. Classified number 1 of 4. And little asterisks, and it says, stay tuned for more information, including the actual title in July. Not
I
actual
missed that.
title, is the asterisk. Um, I think, marketing ploy, whatever. But it did intrigue me because we recently, and we talked about it in the last solicits, we had the classified one for the death of someone issue, and
Yeah.
we've had it recently with Image, where it was the Mark Miller World crossover and Void Rivals, and oh yeah, we'll get to a bit of that in a little while. But I'm quite liking these trends because so far they seem to be paying off for me. And so yeah, they've obviously got something up their sleeve. They won't announce it till July, so I'm guessing it's going to be something that comes off of a book that happens in July. Maybe something to do with the Spider-Man Miss Marvel stories that are coming out. So yeah, really interested to see what they do with that. But could also be absolute balls, couldn't it? It could be something that I have zero interest in because I have no idea who the creators are or anything like that. But yeah, at the moment, little tricks like that are not outstaying their welcome. They're intriguing me right now.
Yes. So we shall go to DC.
DC.
First one isn't going to really go too much into it because we've done a whole show on it. but the complete deluxe edition of Nice House on the Lake in a beautiful, beautiful hardback is
Does look
coming out
beautiful,
very
beautiful,
soon.
and it is also going to go on to my Amazon wish list for Insta purchasing, or potentially leaving on there for a loved one to get for me for Christmas. But yeah, I'll definitely be picking that up.
Um,
Imagine that art
oh,
on.
and it's
Oh,
if they do a coffee
it's gonna
table
be
version.
It's gonna be beautiful.
Oh, oh yes. That's going to be one of those Christmas hints to
Yeah,
anyone and everyone of like
just leave notes everywhere you go, going, if
this.
you really loved me, you'd buy this for me.
um, Most of DC is the continuation of Night Terrors.
Yeah,
There are a lot of Night Terrors. Pretty much
yeah.
everyone and
Well,
their aunt is
we
getting
said last month,
issue
didn't we?
twos.
Like it was clearly like kind of a 2 month initiative because all of them were like one of two. So we kind of knew coming into DC that the bulk of DC's releases would be Night Terrors, including the end of it, which I think is called the end, isn't it? Or
Yeah.
it's Night Terrors something end, Night's End. I don't know. End.
So Night Terrors is getting all sorted out fairly quickly. The only other thing for DC for me is number one of Tom King's The Penguin.
It was the only DC one other than the hardcover that I had. Now, please tell me though. I thought this was in last month's, or did we talk about it as
No, so
news?
we mentioned it as news,
Good. Okay.
and
Good. Good.
um, Zero had been
Okay.
mentioned as
Okay.
last
Yeah.
month, but it's then also mentioned again this month. So I'm guessing they pushed the release date back
Yeah.
slightly for Zero, which is just explain where or why Penguin's where
Oh,
Penguin
cool.
is. So after retiring to Metropolis following his death, which you'll find out more in Penguin Zero, because that's gonna
Yeah.
relay the story of his
Well,
death
that's the thing.
again.
I presume. Yeah, I presume that's happening in Zero, or even pre-Zero, and Zero leads on to it. But yes, yeah, it'll be clear to us by the time we get to number one, I believe.
Yeah, Oswald finds himself forced back into Gotham as he is trying to get back into the criminal ways. Has to deal with the bastard twin trying to rule the Iceberg Lounge. And
It's
what of the man who framed his death? Batman.
it's such a cool location, the Iceberg Lounge. By the way, I just want to focus in on that. It's I think underappreciated for uh, comic book locales. You know, like of course you've got like you know your Wayne Manors, like Daily Planets, Avengers Mansions, and things like that. But whenever I hear or even turn a page and there's a suggestion that they're going to the Iceberg Lounge, and you get that kind of outside shot of it, and you know when you first see it is yes, it's gonna be full of people, like rich criminals generally getting pissed up and having a debaucherous time. I don't know. It just invokes such imagery for me when I see it on the page or hear it.
Yes. So I'm definitely looking forward to that one.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, like we've got quite a bit of Tom King, I think, on our backlog, haven't we? And I've bought a lot over the X amount of years that I keep telling myself. I've bought a lot of them in sexy hardcovers that I keep telling myself I'm going to read, and then I say no, hold fire. We'll do a show on that at some point, so I'll read it closer to the time. And I do need to reinvest in some of or read some of his like 12 issue series and his Black Label stuff. But yeah, if he's releasing something, I'm coming along for the ride. And we talked about it in the One Bad Day. I think we both have a lot of love for Penguin from our first experiences of him from the Batman 66 up to today.
yes.
And I, I've never really come across a period or a story that has made me lose my love for him and putting a creator on it that I really enjoy. I'm very intrigued to see what he does and where he goes with the Penguin as a character.
Yes. So, was there anything else DC
Um,
for you?
just very very quickly, and it's not something I'm going to get, but it is something that I wanted to just focus on. there's a Dead Boy Detectives omnibus coming out. Now, I say this because we've recently, last episode, done Sandman, where we're introduced to the concept of the Dead Boy Detectives, and this reprints, I think, I think every appearance they have in. I'm gonna go with Vertigo from this point onwards, and yeah, I'm a way off of getting to any of that stuff because I want to get through Sandman first. But I just wanted to acknowledge how cool it was that there will be a Dead Boy Detectives omnibus out there.
I did see that and did think of you.
Yeah, oh, it's just such a brilliant name, isn't it? And
Yes.
they say such a brilliant name, not only a brilliant name, but in the one story we've read of him so far, such a brilliantly done issue and such a brilliant concept.
Yes. So let's go to the indies.
Yeah, and just very quickly, I just want to sound DC. I feel a bit mean, but I think we said it last month of going. It's quite hard for me to be massively excited about any of the part twos of Night Terrors. A little bit more interested, like a little bit easier to get invested in issue ones, isn't it? But
Yeah.
I think my excitement for those issue twos will be very much dependent on how I enjoyed the issue ones. So
Yeah. So for Boom, do you have anything? Oh, not Boom. For Dark Horse.
yes, I have one for Dark Horse, and partially it's to remind myself that there have been some series and some spin-offs that I haven't got to yet. But also it did remind me how much I bloody love this as a property. But Black Hammer at the End, number one, is coming out, and this is written by Jeff Lemire, who uh, any chance I get a chance to talk about him and how much I love him, I do. I absolutely love him, and his Dark Horse superhero, I'm going to say universe, but it's very much contained in stuff that he's written and a couple of spin-offs. Black Hammer is an absolute treasure to read. It kind of plays in that world of I'd say kind of dystopia for superheroes,
Mm.
but you join the story when the team has been something but isn't something anymore, and they're all in sort of disparate places and not in the best place, and it's just fantastic. And this will hopefully reinvigorate me and remind me to catch up on the stuff because I've read the first omnibus worth of it,
Yeah.
and yeah, just pump more of this into my vein. It's absolutely amazing.
So we'll now go to Image.
Image,
Do you have anything for Image?
I do. I have a plethora. No, I don't. I have a few things for
So,
Image.
so I have just the one.
Oh, let's
Um,
see if we cross over.
so I have pulled out Sacrifices.
Yes, we do cross
After
over.
reading the Free Comic Book Day mini issue,
Yeah,
it at the time it didn't sort of shout out at me, but I then gave it a reread, and there's enough intrigue in there of what they're doing to maybe at least try issue one
yeah.
and see if it then grabs me enough.
I think I
Obviously,
said to you at the time, I quite like the writer Rick Remender. He's done a lot
yeah,
of stuff I've liked, so that was probably enough to grab me, to kind of go, oh, a new Rick Remender series. Yep, let's give it a go. And I quite liked that the solicitation of it, like the the five families, but but they have to pay one child per household to keep themselves in a kind of a paradise. And God, the more we do on here, the more I realise that I quite like bleak stories, or stories where there's a price, a human price, and people have to make tough decisions. And this sounds like it may very much be right up my alley.
yes. So what else do you have for the Image?
One of another number one, the Cull number one, which is one of five. But the main attraction initially for me was it's written by Kelly Thompson. I've been reading some of Kelly Thompson's Marvel work. Black Widow especially stood out for me, and she's kind of gone on that list now of if she is writing something, I will
Mm.
certainly give it a crack. And in the descriptor, it sort of said. Something is killing the children, horror vibes mixed with Goonie style adventure, and I've loved what I've read of Something is Killing the Children so far, and I love me some Goonies. So it certainly sounds like something I'd be interested in. And I've said this kind of before, probably in the Marvel DC world, I tend to not quite get so invested in the one of five stories. I quite like
Mm.
the idea of an ongoing that has story arcs, whereas in the indie world and the image world, I don't mind it so much because you tend to find that. So in this case, Kelly Thompson probably has a 5 issue story to tell,
Yeah.
and but it will have significance because it's not just. This doesn't sound horrible, but often when I see this in Marvel and DC, it's almost like, look, we know people are going to buy another Batman series. If you've got a 5 issue story, you could knock up and chuck out there. Whereas these feel like it's a story that probably they're more invested in and they really like,
Yeah.
but it is a finite story. So good on it for kind of getting in, doing its thing, and then getting out again quite quickly.
And the thing is, with those sort of ones, especially with the indies that do those, um, they normally will have, obviously they will have how much they've got for that, and they can have their finish
Yeah,
in that bit. But if it sells well and they go, oh, do you want to play in that world again and do a second run?
yeah, yeah. I
There's
mean,
there's not that pressure of, oh, well, you need to knock it up next week and get it out the week after. They will, because they will then give them that time. Normally with the indies, they do give them a little bit of breathing time to then have that story to tell,
yeah, yeah.
because
You're
it's
right,
not
aren't
that
you?
with, as you say, with like the Batman and things like that. Even if you have different writers that come in and out of it, that you've got to have something for every month. Where with these indie stuff, like the Lilith Star, Ramby, he had his six issues to tell what he wanted to tell in that. It sold well enough that if he then goes, right, here's a contract for another 3 6 issue stories, when you have them, go.
Yeah. Or as you say, like, it can be used to kind of that could be three totally disparate that have no connection, but yeah, a finite story can still be a finite story, but there can be further stories afterwards or extended out in that universe, can't it?
Yeah.
Like it like, so this one's the Cull. It doesn't necessarily have to be even the same characters, or it could be someone that's tangentially linked. But yeah, sign me up. Same token. By Image, another number one. It's Quest number one. Now, Quest number one was a bit of an oddity for me. It really, really jumped out at me because of Jonathan Luna, who's the writer and artist of it. And I read large parts of a series called The Sword, and I started reading a series called Alex and Ada. I want to say like 10, 12 years ago by
Hmm.
and I'm pretty sure his brother was around at that point. I'm sure it's the Luna brothers. And another series called Girls, which I started. And you know what? I was really enjoying all of them, but it kind of happened at a point where I fell out of comics a little bit. And so this made me go, oh, I want to go back and read them, but also, oh, maybe this is the thing that will get me to go back and re sort of join up with that by
Having something new.
yeah, and it might kind of go, oh, fish out like Girls, Sword, and Alex and Ada, and kind of finish them off. That from what I'd experienced of their previous works, I would say quirkily interesting. Um, Art style was not an art style that I would have thought I would have naturally clicked with at the time,
Mm.
but really strikingly stood out because it was different than probably what I was reading at the time. But as I say, the couple of series I did, like they've got a very kind of moderny sci-fi, moderny, but with fantasy sort of leans into it, and very much sort of talking about the human condition. So yeah, bang on. I'll be jumping in for Quest, and probably it will make me read all their old series again and actually finish them off this time. And a couple of not number ones from Image. So and these are almost sneaky repeats of stuff that we've covered before, but just a little chance to talk about it again. But and I mentioned this earlier. Big game number two from Image, which is the Mark Miller World crossover.
Mm.
And when we last talked about it, there was a lot of kind of mystery around what the mystery was. That's a terrible sentence, but we're leaving it in there. But subsequently, in the tail end of one of the series that it was writing, and Nemesis, I want to say Reloaded or Rebirth, I can't remember which one it is, but you get to the tail end of that book and there is a big Miller World reveal, and that kind of leads into the unexpected surprise part of this story. And I'm not going to say it here because I'm not going to be spoiler boy, but it's made me even more interested now I know what and where this series is going. So yeah, I'm revisiting it at number two to say I will be getting that, and it's even more exciting than I thought it was going to be when we covered number one. And by the
Yes.
same token, Void Rivals number three, which again was a new Image property, Robert Kirkman written, and the solicit for it was very much, ooh, you kind of won't believe what happens in this. This is going to be something different, and it's all super, 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 super classified. Again, I will dip out on spoilers of it, but I will say that I purchased number one this week. I read number one this week. Unfortunately, it had been spoiled for me before I read number one, but I was going to be buying it anyway. Bloody brilliant. The Void Rivals story, let's go with, I really, really enjoyed. And the big reveal spoiler shared universe thing that in that was something that made young me, middle me, and me now as giddy as a pig in shit is how I'll describe it. But yeah, it was really nicely written and really nice on the art. And I think even if the rest of Void Rivals isn't massively touching on some stuff that we'll talk about in next month's solicitations, it was a good enough story. I love the movie Enemy Mine, and if anyone's watched the movie Enemy Mine and loved the movie Enemy Mine, get this series because it's got a lot of that kind of two warring disparate people put into a place and having to work together and seeing how they interact. But yeah, absolutely spot on Void Rivals. And yes, if you haven't been spoilt on what happens in Void Rivals 1 yet, go and bloody buy it. You'll love it. Do it before you get spoilt.
So, last but not least, we are in Boom, and I have
Boom.
just the one, but I feel this may be one of yours, and you will be waxing lyrical about it.
Um, if it is the same one, I said to you before we started recording, this is the absolute highlight of the solicits for me this month of any company of any of the things that are coming out. And there's some stuff that I think is really cool, but this was the one where I just went, whoa, there you go, ding ding ding, winner, knockout, round one.
So, I'm gonna guess it's the same thing. Rare flavors number one.
It blooming well is,
Tasting menu Ashcan.
Yep, yep. And we you mentioned it earlier, didn't you? This is Ramvi and Felipe Andrade coming back to do a series together, and the last time, or the first time they did a series together, was the Many Deaths of Layla Starr. I we talked about it at length on here. I absolutely love the Many Deaths of Layla Starr. It is a beautiful bit of writing, a beautiful bit of art that I'd say is an amazing comic book, but just amazing in general. I said to you at the time, it's one of those things where it is a work of art, and I plump it in front of anyone and defy them not to get something out of it. Even if it's someone who goes, "Oh, I wouldn't read a comic book." Well, read that, Bucko, and tell me that it's not like comics can't be brilliant. So to hear that they were, and I kind of assumed they'd come back together at some point, but to hear that they are coming back together and we're getting it in August. Again, I was happy as pig and shit.
So, this is just that, as they're calling an Ashcan. So, I don't think it's officially the start of the true story.
Yeah.
But it is going to be limited to one printing only. So it's one of those. I think you might want to go and get a physical copy of that in
I
there.
don't think I'll be able to. Is the honest truth. I think this will this and not just because I love it, but Boom are quite good with this. Boom do and probably because they have to in some cases because they're not in a position like they're not Marvel. They can't just like chunter out hundreds of thousands of copies and take a loss on it. They do have to do limited runs, but also they've had some absolute baller success by doing limited runs on things, so that pretty much a month, 2 months before they're actually released, issues of things from Boom have been selling on eBay, considering they don't exist at that point, for 10, 11, 12 times the cover price. And I think this may be one of those. So I think I will struggle to get a physical copy, but I'll get a digital copy.
I'll see what my boys at Abstract can do if I can get one and get it for you. So the premise of this new series is the supernatural Indian cuisine cutthroat chefs
Yeah.
driven for fame.
Yep.
As someone that has worked in kitchens, I mean, I'm interested to see how they show kitchen life. But after, as you say, after Lily of Star and how they even did like the most mundane, normal things in that made them feel exciting and
Well, I know
invigorating.
it
I'm like,
wasn't. I know you like the temple issue especially, whereas mine, the real highlight was the cigarette issue. But I'll go to the cigarette issue of going, if they can like kind of make the a cigarette the narrator of it, if they're playing in the world of food, just imagine what they're going to lean into as their storytelling techniques in this. And that kind of celebrity driven chef thing. I mean, there's what the menu. I can't remember all of them. It's been about three or four kind of really critically acclaimed TV shows and movies in the last couple of years that are looking at that kind of chef world and
mm.
how hard it can be. You know, it's rife for storytelling, and these guys know how to tell stories. So yeah, even more so the premise. I was buying it anyway, but the premise makes me want to buy it even more.
Yes. So yeah, that was the one when I got to that, and I was like, yes, please.
I was kind of
Um,
hoping you, not hoping, that sounds terrible, but I was kind of hoping and thinking you might not have seen it, and I thought, oh, if he hasn't, then I can go look.
and I
It's
did also
here,
see that Lilith is getting a reissue in just black and white,
Layla.
or Layla,
Yeah.
Layla Star.
Is
Yes,
it? Oh,
yes,
I think I got so excitable by Rare Flavors. Oh yeah, yeah. I'm just looking here. It's above it. The pen and ink version. That actually
yes.
does sound quite cool as well. Although having said that, and I probably will get it, but I thought the colours were such a big thing in there that I do, and
Yeah.
I think the art is going to be great anyway. But yeah, I do wonder what that'll be like without that colour palette on it, because it was
And
so
so
vivid and so evocative.
yeah, so I bloody love a noir. Like I'm a sucker for the black and white Batmans and the black and white
Yeah,
Darth
yeah, you
Vaders and
are
things like that.
the black, white, and reds and things like that. Yeah, you
Yeah.
do, didn't you?
So yeah, it said sometimes they're amazing, but there are a few where they really it doesn't hit the same.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I do wonder how that will work because as you say,
Well,
the
and
warm
quite
tones and colors do make a lot to that.
well, and quite often, like so with those things like the black and whites, and you know when we talked about the Walking Dead, you're experiencing them as black and white, whereas this is going to be odd, isn't it? Because we've experienced it in color, and then
Yeah.
it's what happens if you take that color away. But yeah, yeah, I'll probably get it.
So that is us for the crystal ball.
It's weird, isn't it? Because I said earlier, like not a lot for either of us in DC, but bearing in mind one of the big publishers wasn't grabbing us particularly. Still
Mm.
quite a lot there, I think, for the month, and as I say, some real temple ones. I mean, we're getting a new Tom King, we're getting a new Ram V. Like, there's some cool stuff out there, and as ever, we always say this: lots of stuff in here we will be reading because it's part of ongoing runs that we like. One of the
Yeah.
things that and I meant to say that actually surprised me is because I thought it would be on your list was Ghost Rider and Wolverine. There's a 5 issue limited series for
I
them.
I did see that, but it didn't look like it would tickle my pickle.
Really, I thought
But
that would be right up your alley.
me being me, once it's on the app and it's sat there and I can just open it up in front of me, and then I probably will end up reading it. But yeah, it wasn't one that jumped out.
Well, it was weird because I'm reading that Ghost Rider run, and I have
Mm,
just started the Wolverine one because I've just got to kind of that part on in the X universe, and I really like what he's doing with Ghost Rider, and I really like what he's doing with X Men. But it was that weird thing when I got to that part, I just went, eh. But I think I will really enjoy it when I get to it. But it
mm.
didn't, it didn't really excite me. But yeah, as soon as I saw that, I thought, oh well, there you go. There's his number one pick. Well, I say there's his number one pick. I think in my head it was your number two pick, but I assumed you wasn't going to bring Blade number two. But I know that's your number one pick in all of the solicits.
Well, we all know once that new Blade run gets on the app, I will be all over
Do you know what? I really do hope it's good for your sake. I don't want to deal with you if you're disappointed by a bad Blade.
it. So, thank you very much for watching. As always, YouTube things of like, subscribe, ring bells.
Let us know
Comments down
what
there.
let us know what you're interested in for August, and let us know what your favourite animal is that's going to be appearing in Marvel Unleashed. The
Exactly.
answer's Lucky the Pizza Dog, obviously.
The frog with Thor's hammer does sound quite intriguing, though.
Throg. Yeah, but he's not Lucky the Pizza Dog, is he?
He isn't Lucky the Pizza Dog, though,
Yeah.
no. But we will see what happens when we do get to that. As always, I said, thank you very much for watching. Until next time, in a less sweaty version, goodbye.
P.S. We're not promising a less sweaty version.